Good morning, boys and girls. I've got a real treat for you today. I'm going to be thinking about a special story. I'm going to be showing you an experiment. And I'm also going to show you some creatures which I have in the room with me today. Isn't that very exciting? First of all, I want to say hello. How are you all? It's great to see you. And I want to show you a very special experiment I have. Have you ever had that sinking feeling? You know, when you feel really down and you think, oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to get that pick me up again. Well, here's a special experiment I have to illustrate my story today. Here it is. It's a big vase vase and it's got loads of water in it, so I hope I don't pour it all over my computer. Now, where do you see this? Look, if I drop this, do you think it will float or sink? What do you think? Let's see. Oh, sink right down to the bottom. And no matter how many times I do that, you know what? It'll continue to sink. But wait till you see this. Will this sink or will this float? Let's see. Oh, it floats. Goody, goody, goody. Now, what happens if I take the thing that sinks and put the thing that floats in it? What do you think it will do? Do you think it will sink or will it float? Let's see. Ah, it floats. How wonderful. That's amazing. That's a miracle. Now let's see if it can help to illustrate our story today. It's a very special story. It's from the Bible, and I'm going to put my glasses on so I can read the words so much easier. What do you see? Oh my goodness, look at that. That's much better. It's a story about Jesus and his disciples. And you know, it had been a long day, and Jesus had been speaking to lots of crowds of people. But as the crowds were leaving, Jesus told his disciples to go and find their boat and go back to the other side of the lake. Meanwhile, Jesus, he was going up the mountainside to pray. When he'd finished praying, it was really early in the morning, maybe about 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. when you and I are all fast asleep. And he came to the shore where the disciples had left in their boat. He could see the boat, but it was far away, and the wind had been up there, and the storm was there, and it had blown them to the other side of the lake. So Jesus knows that he needs to get to that boat and to the other side of the lake. So there's lots of ways he could have done that. But you know what he did? He walked on the water. He walked and was finally close enough so that the disciples could see him. They're going, oh, what is that? Is it a ghost? How can someone be coming across the lake walking on the water? I think a few of them were very terrified. They'd come to the side of the boat and they looked and they thought, oh, how scary is that? Jesus could see and he could hear the confusion. And he shouted, it's all right, I'm here, don't be afraid. The disciples looked at each other and thought they were a bit silly, that they thought their teacher, that Jesus, was a ghost. Then Peter replied, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you on the water. And Jesus did exactly that. He said, come. And Peter got out of the boat and stepped on the water and began to walk on the water towards Jesus. Peter watched Jesus at first and then he lost his focus completely. He looked at the wind and he looked at the waves and he started to sink. But as soon as he became scared and began to sink, He cried out, he said, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and grabbed hold of Peter, and then he was saved. You have such little trust, Peter. Why did you doubt me? And Peter walked beside him on the water back to the boat. And he wondered, why did I get so afraid? He knew Jesus could do anything, but it seems as soon as he took his eyes off Jesus, he started to think about the other things, and that's when he began to sink. As soon as Jesus got into the boat, the wind stopped, the sea was calm, and everyone in the boat said, truly, this is God's Son. Now, there used to be a program on TV called Sesame Street. And it used to always say at the start, today's story and today's lesson is always starting with this letter. And today my letter is F. And the number is 4. So are you ready? You see, the first F word is fear. Peter was afraid to step out of the boat. And the disciples were afraid that they didn't. But Peter did. He overcame that fear and he stepped out. I wonder which disciple you're most like. Are you one that's still carrying in the boat? Or have you stepped out in faith with no fear, just like Peter did? Peter walked on the water. The second F is focus. He focused, he really did. But then he lost his focus. He stopped looking at Jesus and he focused on the wind and the waves and he began to sink. It's the second F, the focus. The third one was follow. Peter so wanted to follow Jesus. He knew it would be hard, and he knew he could overcome his fear by adjusting his focus so that it would be so much easier to follow Jesus, to step out in faith. Those 4 very special words. Fear and how to overcome it. Focus, to focus our eyes on Jesus. To follow Jesus. Sometimes it can be scary, but you know what? He will never leave us and never forsake us. And that's what having faith is all about. You see how the sinking feeling, remember my experiment, and how it floated because Jesus is exactly like that experiment, that when he's at the center of our lives, we'll never have that sinking feeling. There might be storms coming. There might be wind and waves, not just when we're out on the sea in a boat, but even in life there can be times whenever there's storms. But Jesus can keep us afloat. Now, I've got a special verse, a special experiment thing to show you now that Jane made for me whenever we were in GB. This is what it says. Look, frog, do you see him? And it says at the bottom, fully rely on God. And just as a special visual this morning, I've actually got some frogs. I'm not going to let them jump all over the screen. They're in a jam jar and I'm going to set them free after this. But let me show you them. Look, can you see them? I'm going to try and get it really close. Do you see? Do you see the wee frogs? Do you see them? I'll maybe see if I can get them to jump for you. Jump, little froggy. Jump, little froggy. You see? Do you see the frog? Oh, look, there he is. Do you see him? Oh my goodness. Do you see him? Special frogs for special boys and girls this morning. He's looking at you. And remember, what does frog stand for? Fully rely on God. Let me show you that special thing that Jane made for me. Look, you see? Frog. And then she drew, look, see him? Fully rely on God. And here's another one just to show you, look. You see it? Froggies. Fully rely on God. And if we fully rely on God, oh my goodness, we'll not have that sinking feeling ever again, because we know that we can trust in Him.